a post-structural kind of mindset is an idea where you're not going to place any type of structure on it. So saying that, if you're going to be a painter and you're going to paint flowers as a still life using watercolor paints, to label that as being just a Sunday painter is a modernist kind of construct.
It's saying that that's not enough. You're uneducated.
Right.
And
you're not serious. Right?
Yeah.
But it's okay to do that now. Whereas postmodern,
you were trying to be
mindset,
something that you weren't.
Right. Well, in a postmodern, you kind of eliminate all those kind of labels on top of things, saying, well, this is a real artist and this is just a Sunday painter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to Henry's Every Angle podcast. My name's Casey Henry. I want to remind you to like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment below. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. If you have questions, please put them in the comment. Today, I have Brett Osborn. He has been a dean of a university. He is 100% a professional artist. And today, we want to talk about how this all came about and how he is an outlier and does not follow social norms. So, how in the world does being an artist reflect to even becoming a dean?
So, I had really kind of a long past working in Hollywood and painting. My father was an artist, and my cousin was a big influence on me to being an artist as well. So I'd always been an artist. And when I was hired at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, and they opened a new campus in Atlanta, because I had experience being in Los Angeles, a major metropolitan city, and Savannah is really kind of small. And so a lot of the faculty didn't want to transfer from that lifestyle of being in a small community to, metropolis, right? So I volunteered to go up, and they needed leadership up there. And so I was hired as a chair, essentially, and then when that campus opened up, they asked me if I could become a dean. So because the school is a fine arts school, design and fine arts, that it was really easy transition to go from a faculty member, an artist, to administration, which is really focused on the fine arts. So it'd be different if I would go in, being asked to be a dean of a nursing school or something like that. I wouldn't have the skill sets or the ability to know what that would entail.
Right. When you say fine arts, are you talking about everything on the lines of painting, or is that also on the lines of like clay work and even everything you're doing here where you're creating a castle?
Right. So so the school will have design classes, which we learn the basic fundamentals of making art. So you learn color theory and design principles, repetition, things like that within design, and those types of structures within the design, as well as the fine arts. So it's aspects of three-dimensional art, two-dimensional art. So you had sculpture, you had printmaking, you had painting, foundation studies, which is its whole department, as well as working tangentially with like film students, animation, which is drawing for film, right? So all of that had, kind of a nice overlay of skill sets. So
one of the things, because I've been to where you live right now, and you showed me a photo of, not a photo, but a painting where the art is actually, it doesn't just deceive by the eye of coming out of the painting itself, but it's actual 3D. The way you painted it, it actually comes off the canvas and comes out.
Right. So I've been very interested in. It's so funny they call me an outlier. I think part of that comes from the fact that my education has been really very varied. So I had some faculty members who were really diehard modernists, and I had other faculty members who were teaching more the academic tradition. So this hybridization of more contemporary versus traditional I think has fed into my concepts. So in my work, I may do something really kind of old school, but also add elements that are very contemporary as well. So,
Right.
The fact that I'm interested in like a postmodern concept of juxtaposition of two non sequiturs, meaning like when I say the word chocolate covered bacon, that's chocolate covered bacon is postmodern, where you take two non-tangibles, two things that you not normally would ever associate to be together, and then combine it into like food. That's postmodern. So my work is traditional in some ways of the application. So you're talking about the thick paint, the application of it almost becoming physical, like Rembrandt would do. If you actually looked at a Rembrandt in person, you could literally take your finger and feel the contour of the painting of the face.
Right.
Where the modernists, they were more about direct application, often very thin and pure color. So it wasn't so much of the layering, necessarily. So not as much less of a recipe, I think, in the modern context. We're actually in the postmodern period. We're actually beyond postmodernism. So that means that the elements of postmodernism, like thinking outside the box, is postmodern.
Okay.
We accepted that, but we also gone back to modernism and say, well, it's okay to bring the baby back in with the bathwater, because in postmodernism they just threw out the baby with the bathwater, meaning that if you're a postmodernist, you couldn't accept things like modernism, that kind of thinking inside the box, the tradition of always doing things a certain way. The postmodernists would look down at that. But the problem is, if you only accept postmodernism, then that means you would go into the grocery store and there wouldn't just be one aisle of cereal. The cereal boxes would be scattered all over the store.
Right.
Right. So you need both modernism and postmodernism. So that's why I say we're in a poly-contemporary time period now, meaning poly meaning many, and contemporary just meaning now, where you're accepting modernism and postmodernism.
And bringing it together.
And accept, well, you can be dismissive of either or accepting both at the same time, or just accepting one at one time and rejecting another at another time. It's okay to do that. Another kind of example of that would be this idea that in a postmodern world, you weren't allowed to like certain artists, like Norman Rockwell, or you wouldn't be allowed to like any artist who didn't go to a proper school, right? So in the modernist phase, they were very kind of dismissive of anything that didn't fit within the academia of institutions. So Andrew Wyeth was self-taught. So you weren't allowed to like Andrew Wyeth when you were in a modernist school setting.
Because he never went to a school.
Because he never went to a school. He was self-taught. And he was taught by his father, who was also an artist. But because he didn't go to Yale or Claremont or
anything fancy,
any well-respected institution, then you were really just a homework Sunday painter.
Right. Now, is this stuff that... Because, I mean, you just gave out a whole bunch of information, and quite frankly, like, not even a lot of information that I don't even completely follow, but obviously they don't follow. Is this stuff that you learn in school, or is this a lot of self-taught as well?
Well, a little bit of both. When there's a class called Art Theory, which the school has on the curriculum that's required by all graduate students. And you really have to be up on what's going on now. And because I was in Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s, I was able to see the formulation of postmodernism firsthand, because I really felt, all right, I have to step back a little bit, because in reality, postmodernism, you could go back to James Joyce, you could go back to Pink Floyd's music, where they started adding language to their music.
Oh, yeah.
And sounds of dogs and stuff like that. That was kind of proto-postmodernism. But the real kind of architectural involvement with postmodern theory happened really in Los Angeles first.
I could believe that.
That's where I really kind of saw it, and also with the art world. I know I had a friend of mine, Daniele Brighetti, in school. For his painting thesis, he wanted to slam dunk a basketball for his thesis show. And he was, at the beginning of the year, he was a little overweight, and his goal was to get in shape to be able to dunk a basketball. And so he literally set up a basketball hoop in the gallery, and he would slam dunk for his thesis show. His painting thesis exhibition was him slam dunking a basketball. Of course, the faculty wanted to see he was a great painter. He is a great painter. And they made him also put paintings along the walls just to validate that exhibition. But it was just really novel to think of a shift, such a dramatic shift in the way that you could perceive art. Duchamp did it with the toilet. If you know the history of Duchamp's Armut, which is just a toilet he brought into a gallery and hung it upside down, and it was a sculptural piece. It was a ceramic piece that he hung on the wall, and just because the artist signed it,
then it was
Duchamp, it became art, right? So that was a big question of what is art and things like that. So, so I was willing to teach the class because it's over 1,000 pages of reading for this class, for this art theory class, and you have to go really from earliest type of modernist thought to contemporary.
Now, is this through like the entire academic program, or is this just a semester or a term?
It'd be a 1-quarter course.
Okay.
So it's a lot of reading for both the student and myself to teach it, or any faculty to teach it. So there's very few faculty that really want to, or are interested in I shouldn't say few, but there's only a couple of us that really enjoy reading the material.
Right.
You have to read a lot of French theorists, Derrida, Foucault.
And is this today, or was this?
It's still taught.
No,
Yeah.
I mean what you're doing today.
In terms of
Education, teaching.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I include these concepts even in my drawing class, my beginning drawing classes. So painting, drawing, I always try to feed them ideas of where we are culturally in the world in terms of our perspective. So, and why I say we're in a polycontemporary is that it's okay to do pretty little watercolor still lifes of flowers. Where during the modernist area that you'd be considered a Sunday painter and not be taken seriously. But because artists can take on kind of this post-structuralist, I'm kind of laughing because it's like I have to get through all these kind of isms that help define the terminology. And the irony is that postmodernism really doesn't like labels, which modernism does. But I went ahead and made labels for postmodernism, which is kind of taboo. But it helps to structure our way of thinking. So a post-structural kind of mindset is an idea where you're not going to place any type of structure on it. So saying that, if you're going to be a painter and you're going to paint flowers as a still life using watercolor paints, to label that as being just a Sunday painter is a modernist kind of construct.
It's saying that that's not enough. You're
right,
uneducated,
right,
and
you're not serious, right?
Yeah,
but it's okay to do that now. Whereas postmodern,
you were trying to be
mindset,
something that you weren't.
Right. Well, in a postmodern, you kind of eliminate all those kind of labels on top of things, saying, well, this is a real artist and this is just a Sunday painter.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in the postmodern era, if you did the still life of the flowers, you would also disdain the person for working in a way that doesn't really elevate more social concerns. You're just making pretty paintings, which is a very modernist. Yeah. Even though the modernist would consider you immature, the postmodernist would say, well, why are you painting at all? You should be talking about using non-traditional materials like mixing bacon and chocolate together, or chocolate and bacon together to make, or sushi tacos, things like that.
Yeah.
Multiculturalism is another way of approaching postmodernism. So doing a painting of flowers in watercolor would also be disagreeable to the postmodernists as well as the modernists. But now the post-structuralists said, well, that's just another structure you're applying to it. So you're dismissing modernism, but you're also saying you're also making new rules. And post-structuralists, well, you're just applying a structure. So post-structuralists were kind of freeing
the ability of your creativity.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's okay. So nowadays you can do it. You can do cartoons. You can, and be serious, being considered a serious artist by just doing cartoon type of work.
Right.
It's
not just play necessarily.
Right.
I mean, it's enjoyable, but it's considered more.
Right.
Well, that's definitely a lot of history. And are you saying all this is done within usually one term, one quarter taught that?
Yeah. For graduate students, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For undergraduates, I don't go that deeply into it.
Yeah.
It's just too much to take in, and.
I mean, it is a lot to take in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that people are aware of things, like you see like a bunch of skis screwed together to make a bench.
Right.
Or repurposing something. All these terms, I think people, recontextualization, repurposing something, by reusing something that normally would be thrown away.
Yeah, recycling.
Recycling. People understand that concept, but they don't necessarily associate it with being part of a postmodern movement. Right. But yeah, so I just connect the dots for people to help them see why it is there are certain things that are still modernist, like the grocery store can you imagine the food aisles all just mixed up?
I'd be angry.
Yeah. Or zoos, people want to see the cats, so they go to the cat area, or they go to
the bird
section, right? That's very modernist. So anytime you think of putting things in a box, then that's very modernist,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And how long have you been teaching this for?
So, boy, I think I started work on it probably in 2005. So,
this will be
20
Happy
years.
New Year's, by the way. I don't think I even said that. 20 years.
Yeah,
Congrats.
20 years. Thank you. Yeah. So I started teaching part-time in Los Angeles, and then was hired to go to Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, in 2003. So but I was interested in I think being an artist, and being part of helping to define your own ism. I think that's always been part of school. How do you develop a sense of personal vision and voice? And I think looking at my work and looking back over the years, it always has been kind of a structure that kind of broke rules, and that's why you see I kind of
called you an outlier.
An outlier because of that. But like painting little feet that are outside the shoes of the subject, which is the ghost image in the painting, and having the ghost image as a way to break through this idea of the background just being filler. So I wanted the landscape to be as important as the figure. So when you normally do portraits of people, the background is just filler. It's accoutrement.
Yeah.
It's just something that unimportant. But I really wanted the landscape to be as important, or maybe even more important than the figure. So having them more transparent, then the landscape comes through more. But I always paint the shoes as opaque and outside that window. So in modernism, when you ever see a painting that's a rectangle or a square, or even a ship's circle, they're all windows. And so you're looking through a window. And so I was breaking that, which is postmodern. Whenever you see something that's not following that construct, then it's postmodern. So I made little shoe paintings that would stick on the bottom of the rectangle, and that would help bring the figure closer to the viewer, So it's in the space of the viewer.
Yeah, so you have, like it said, you want the background, but the shoes bring. So I've seen the photos. You guys haven't. You have the painting. You have the painting with the ghost. Take away the shoes. It just looks like a ghost within a forest, or was it a forest?
Usually they're in landscapes. But
Yeah, a painting of a ghost in a forest. But he has another painting underneath with the shoes,
right.
which
are
pull,
opaque.
right, and that pulls the ghost out of it within the eye.
Right. Yeah, brings it into the space of the viewer, and the color of the shoes are the same as the horizon line color. So if it's a really sunny day and a little bit more blue, then the shoes are blue. If it's more hazy and a little more violet, then the shoes are more of a violet. So I'm pushing and pulling space as well by using the shoes.
That's a lot.
So, yeah.
And as you were talking about before even doing this, he told me don't tell me any questions because it's going to take it all away. That's the artist within him. Do you have that all planned out, that's how you're going to do it, or does it kind of come as you go?
So interesting about paintings are a lot like children. Some behave and some don't behave. So I try to let the painting tell me what to do, because if I try to fight it, it usually ends up unsuccessful. So I do have a rough idea of what I'm going to do, who the figure is, and generally the type of environment that they exist in. But I'm very open to making changes along the way, because that's usually the painting telling me what to do.
Right.
So it's more of a reaction to, as things progress, then it's not nearly as planned out as some of the like the Baroque period or before. They would do really extensive drawings, 6 or 7 layers of underpainting, and then finally the final coat.
Right.
And I work much more in a post-Baroque or late Baroque period, and more contemporary in terms of the process, where I'm laying down color. I do use underpaintings, and that just gives it a glow in the shadows. But basically, I'm much more alla prima, or just mixing the paint and applying it directly to the canvas.
Right. That's kind of like with the thumbnails I have going on right now. I learned a decent amount yesterday. Obviously, I told you I learned about lighting last night, or a couple days ago. Will be posted this Saturday. He would take an image. So like, thanks to AI, you can take an image of like photography of like, say it's just a photo of you.
Mm-hmm.
You can hold you and it'll pull you out. What he does is he'll make a duplicate of it, and then he'll turn it completely black, blacken it out, and then completely increase the brightness. The blackness takes away any kind of structure of you, but increasing the brightness allowed for like a glow.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would just take that as a layer and put it behind the original one of you to make you pop out more,
mm-hmm.
because you have a glow behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bunch of stuff that I'm learning that this is, if I could pay someone to do all that part for me, I would, and I would just
mm-hmm.
do this.
Have you seen the images of historical figures that are animated? So they're not only made into contemporary photographs, but they also can move slightly. So people like the Mona Lisa,
Yeah.
Historical Vladimir, not Putin, but I mean even Hitler, and trying to think of other, all the kings, Charles the Great and Catherine the Great, and all these historical figures are actually being animated using AI. It's pretty amazing. And how they would look today in the contemporary outfits, and
Like just like this.
yeah,
And not
not in the historical costume. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's come a long ways.
Yeah.
Do you think AI has, what's the word I want? Within world of art. So, like, you can make an entire movie almost out of AI at this point. A lot of actors are even scared of that because they're scared of losing their jobs. AI could do a podcast. AI could do all this. Do you think AI is a threat to art within this field at all?
Well, maybe to some degree, but they've taken like a Parmigianino painting, threw it with AI to make it more contemporary, and it turns out there's a lot of anomalies that are incorrect. Like one of the figures had 6 fingers.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of problems with it that, and I still believe at this point, and I may change over time to see like with any technology, there's positive and negatives. So with AI, I think it's still a concept where the brain work happens with the human, and it takes whatever is already out there and combine it and recombine it. So I think we'll still have control over the overall, concepts. I think it's good for ideation, for coming up with ideas, but in terms of execution, I still think that the human will be the one that will intercede and become the one that makes the final decision. I don't think the quality of AI in terms of recreating, first of all, paintings are physical, so they're 3-dimensional. So unless you have, a machine that can select color and literally physically spray it onto a surface, which perhaps that's
they could,
but I don't know how quality that would be.
Yeah, because there's emotion behind it too when you do it. It's
and the
not
decisions,
just
right?
doing
And that reaction process that happens in my work. I mean, you can't really. I don't think you can program it to be that fluid, maybe, of the moment. It seems like it all have to follow some kind of, if it's not this path, then it must be this path. It's not quite as, I could be wrong, but I still think that the human creativity will always supersede technology.
Yeah, I mean, I could even relate it to podcasting because, I mean, as the host, I can steer the conversation where I want it to go. If I think something's going too long, I could steer it into another direction. As for AI, they need to be able to analyze what's going on. And again, going back into emotions, you have to consider that, like, oh, is this dragging out? Is this just repeating itself? Is this boring? Is this anything like that? You need to have some kind of an emotional piece in order to host.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I can relate to it.
Yeah. The scary thing is there's all this ChatGPT about it becoming sentient. Have you seen those videos where the AI actually feels it is sentient? So then you're going into sci-fi of it, the Matrix, and
oh yeah,
would it ever want to just shut down the grid? Just
I'm mad at you. You guys are making a bad decision. I'm going to take over.
Right. And so who knows?
I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I don't think we're there today.
Right.
I think regulation needs to be put into consideration with AI.
Right.
Because it could be what enhances the human race the most throughout all history. Or if you were to go too far, it's like within my psychology classes, I remember 6 months ago taking AI into emotional intelligence, into social justice, into ethics. And I just remember in one discussion post, someone's like that AI should really be put into consideration when it comes to social justice. And I quickly commented on there. I'm like, you think humans make a mistake? I'm like, this is a bad idea. And they're like, what do you mean? Humans, like you said, humans make mistakes all the time. If we were to just put it into AI, then it wouldn't be a problem. And I responded by saying, humans not only make mistakes, but what's the word I want? They become too relaxed. Us, not AI, but humans become too relaxed and dependent on things. And if we start, even if you were to say that humans would be able to watch everything that AI makes for a decision, it just takes one moment for someone to say, AI never makes a mistake. I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to click submit. And it could consist of putting someone in jail
Right.
that is wrongfully accused.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why I say not even out of the extreme of power outage throughout the grid, but also the extreme that reliance in over comfort could come into play, which can consist of messing with someone's life independently.
Right. Yeah. That sense of complacency.
That's the word I wanted.
Yeah.
I just blabbled all that time.
I think where
that.
AI could be useful, I think in these type of work conditions where you're just repetitively making the same motions over and over and over again, I think that could be beneficial. Also, double checking medical type of information in terms of looking at a certain parameters of an individual who's ill and making sure that diminishing the amount of medical malpractice.
Yes.
Where decisions are made accidentally or prescription amounts are being created, and having that double checked by AI. I think that type of thing could be very useful.
Yeah, so you're saying instead of checking over what AI does, allow AI to check over what we do.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that could save anything upon taxpayers' money for making wrong decisions through Medicare. It could enhance perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anything's perfect, but we are not perfect, and as humans, we could use it as a tool to watch over ourselves. Maybe you should run for politics and make that happen.
No, thanks. No, thanks. Yeah, too busy, and don't want to get into that arena.
No.
You know.
No. So let's take a step back real quick. You got into art essentially because your dad was into art.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple family members, if I remember right.
I have a sister.
Yeah.
She is.
Well, I mean, also into.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, my cousin.
Yeah.
My cousin. Yeah, Davey.
And so that drew you into art, but you didn't go to art school first?
So, yeah, I went to. My father, was under the assumption that it's much harder life. He was more of a commercial artist than a fine artist. So he designed the Greyhound bus logo in the 50s and Circle K, and he worked for a large company in Milwaukee designing display boards, and so much more design, what would be considered today more of a design commercial art field than my interest in just fine art. So he wanted to make sure that I was financially successful enough to not starve, which is a myth, by the way. So I lived several years just off the artwork. So it is definitely possible. It's not as challenging as people make it out to be. But
you're also an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
While doing that. I mean, I know that, they don't know that.
Right. Yeah. So I made. So I was going to buy an easel, and they were $600 or $700. And I said, I'm not going to spend that. I can make one a lot cheaper. So I did, and then I had a lot of scrap wood. This is when I was in graduate school. Had a lot of scrap wood for making the easel, so I just went ahead and built a really large stretcher bar to paint on, stretch canvas to paint on. And I brought it into class, and all my classmates, hey, where'd you get that? So I made it. Oh, could you make me one? So then I just fell into it. They just started ordering canvases every week, and I said, hey, I could quit all my other part-time jobs and just do this. So I ended up doing that,
Right.
starting a company. But before that, I had lived as an artist. And when you are just doing what you love to do, then you're much more open to opportunities. If you have a full-time job and you're not looking for exhibition spaces or other types of opportunities. For example, a lot of galleries have rental programs where corporations want to decorate their offices, but they don't want to get stuck with specifically just a work of art forever. They want to kind of rotate out the work so they keep changing the environment and just better for, I think, just for the visuals of your corporation. Even renting out paintings to movies, and you can watch a movie, and when I was in school, there'd be this drinking game where, when I was working in Hollywood, drinking game where you actually see the same painting in different movies, because it's a bedroom scene, and so they go to Prop Services West (PSW) to rent, a painting to stick in the bedroom, and then the same company or a different company will rent that same painting a month later and stick it in a different film. So you can actually rent out your work as a fine artist to rental houses or to museums, which have rental programs. So that's how they help fund the museum as well, is to be kind of coordinators with interior designers, and they need to sell a house or whatever, and they want to just stage it.
Yeah.
So they can rent out paintings, so it's a lot cheaper than buying it. And so the artist will make income monthly on paintings that are just out there, and you're achieving, a way of selling it. And then if someone really wants it, they can sell it full price at that time. So all these things are out there for artists that, when you're free to pursue that direction, and then there's opportunities, you kind of learn how to do that. So, but getting back to film school versus, I did take painting classes in undergraduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But I also took theater production and film production. And theater production actually was an amazing experience, because in theater production you build things really well, because it has to be light, has to be strong, and has to last a long time. When you're working in the film industry, you're just building a set that may be shot one day or a couple weeks, and that's it. And it's just thin Luan, and there used to be a joke that if you can squint and it looks good, you kind of move your head and squint and it looks good, that's good enough for Hollywood, right? So you would just build things as fast and as cheaply as possible. But in theater production, it all comes from the shipbuilding industry. A lot of the rigging, those terms and stuff like that that are a part of theater.
Something that will be used again and again.
And because you may have a show that runs several years, and then it might be extended another year. So the way you build sets, the way you build, incredible, just incredible. So you're actually learning the right way to build. So that has allowed me to build the easel years later, and to start my company years later, and to build my stone house and all that.
It taught you carpentry.
Yeah.
It taught you, stonework. I'm going to get something to put into the video once this is all done. It taught you, the strongest house I've ever seen a day in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It taught you how to make stuff durable, because it was done to try to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
right.
Going back to the whole, if you squint and it looks good, it's good enough.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of like on the road kind of stuff, right?
What do you mean? That was in Hollywood. When I was working in Hollywood, you would, if you're working for a relatively low budget company, then basically you would get up and you'd go buy the stuff you need. Let's say you're going to build out a kitchen. So you need to go see if you can rent like a stove and a microwave and a refrigerator, because you don't want to buy them because it's too expensive. But you can rent them much less much less money. And then you'd also need to go get all the coffee pot, all the little stuff. So if you couldn't get them at the rental house, then you would have to go buy the stuff. You know?
Right.
And then you'd also have to buy the wood, if the designer wanted a wallpaper, you know, you'd have to get the wallpaper if they wanted carpeting for something, or tile, or, you know, the
Just for the look.
everything. Yeah, everything that you would see in a kitchen, you would have to get. If we started building at 11 o'clock at night, we were in good shape. And we would build from 11 until 3 or 4 in the morning, and then sleep a couple hours. And your job when you were in the 5-ton truck, as the passenger, is look over at the driver to make sure he wasn't falling asleep as he was driving.
Right.
So so things are really quick. I mean, back in the time that I was in Hollywood, $10,000 an hour is about what, when you're actually shooting, is the costs. So when you are getting things right, because you're building as they're shooting. So you may build one set, they may be shooting on that set, and then you're building here.
For the next
so
set.
For the next set, for the next, we very rarely is everything built ahead of time, completely before they start shooting. They usually start shooting while you're in the progress of getting all the sets ready or finding locations. So the cost is really expensive. So everything is really compressed. So as long as it looks good enough and it works, then you're fine, for Hollywood, but for film industry. But for theater, it's just, you build everything as well as you can, and it takes, you have the time to make it right, because in the end it's worth it. In Hollywood, I was literally I worked for, nothing against Roger Corman Studios, but I worked for Roger Corman Studios, and which is kind of the king of B movies. He was the king of B movies.
What's a B movie? A
B movie would be those low budget films that might be on Saturday night, or shipped over to Europe or Asia. They weren't like a B movie is just like, you can tell that the acting isn't great. The sets are kind of cheap. It's just not.
It's not good.
It's not. Yeah. Although some of them are pretty good. I mean, when some of the films become kind of cult classics just because they're also known for being really cheesy.
Yeah.
And not terribly well made. But I'd be literally pulling out screws from the set that they're actually shooting on to use in the set I'm building. So while they're filming, cut! I'd be pulling out screws from the set just to use them for the next set.
That's where you learned that from.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. Typical. Like there was a great B movie, Transylvania Twist. I thought it was really funny. It's just this woman is walking through the woods in a gingham dress, kind of like a Dorothy figure, and up pops Mike Meyer and then Freddy Krueger, and they're chasing her, and they catch up. There's a third villain in there. I can't remember his name. But they trap her in this barn, and clothes are just flying everywhere and stuff like that. And then it's really quiet, and then she pops up her head in a window, and they zoom in on her, and she has 2 fangs. She's a vampire, and she just says amateurs, So, but these type of cheesy, funny type of work, and that would be somewhat postmodern too, where you're kind of mixing horror and comedy together, not only 2 things together. And after the Second World War, horror was really kind of downplayed. And so if you look at the shift from a kind of mobile but getting out of your car to a more of a mobile privatization. If you look at like the 50s being, people would just drive to the movie theater, drive to the drive-in diner, drive through the liquor store, drive through the grocery store. You would never leave your car. You would just stay in that mobile privatization that happened. But if you look at and what they wanted to do is to escape, kind of the experience during the war where women would get up and go to the factories to build the tanks and the aircraft carriers. Right. Men would be shipped overseas,
right,
to fight. So their personal life was gone. It was all public. They'd get up and they would be in public. They'd be at work. And they came back. So when the war ended, they just really wanted to stay at home. But they still wanted to travel and do things, but contained.
They wanted it contained, and they didn't want negativity.
Yeah. And so, right. So if you look at television, horror films like The Munsters, or, because the movie era kind of died after the war because of, people didn't want to go out. It was tough so they had to invent a way for people to stay in private in their car. So that's why they built all the drive-in movie theaters, right? So they could still get people to see it. But people just really started to migrate more to TV.
Yeah.
Because that was, so then, but the type of programming that they had in terms of horror films, in the 50s were really kind of light, like The Munsters and Addams Family type of, storylines, not gruesome stuff that actually ended like in the 70s, where you started to come back to more of a horrific horror.
Yeah, like really, the purpose of this is to get scared.
Right. But so this Transylvania Twist film I worked on was a B movie, so it was just really low budget, kind of cheesy and funny.
Right.
But
what about that movie that stuff went wrong when you were filming?
So, I'm trying to think which film, because they all were that way.
Something blew up, small grid went out.
Oh, yeah. I really shouldn't talk too much about it, but there was a incident where a gang box, so we were kind of stealing the electricity from a pole and up in the wealthy area of Bel Air.
Yeah.
And a production assistant kicked the gang box into the pool. And you could stand and look down the mountain and see all the lights go out, And we didn't really have permits for that shoot that day. We were using a producer's house to film. If you shoot, you need to get permits.
And how much are they usually?
It depends on the city. I think in Pasadena at that time was like $10,000 a day just to turn on your camera. You had to pay $10,000 a day just to turn on unless you're a student,
anything to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So they want to get their cut. So that's why sometimes you'll see pickup trucks with tarps over them driving down Hollywood Boulevard. You don't actually see the camera, but that's what they're doing. They're stealing a shot, which is where they drive down and they want a shot of Hollywood Boulevard or someplace, and then they just turn on the camera and
quickly go and hope.
And then just hope no one sees them. But we were in a hurry to get all the equipment into the truck, because we could see the fire department and the police coming up the mountain, so we had to leave before it became obviously that we had done something wrong. Yes, and we were just really fortunate no one's injured.
Yeah,
because that could have been really bad.
How often do you actually see someone get injured in that kind of field?
So, you hear about deaths, but they're very few and far between. I think more minor injuries happen, I saw someone try to catch a screwdriver, an electric screwdriver, a drill gun,
Yeah.
and the drill went right through his hand.
Yeah.
He tried to catch it. Someone was tossing it to him, and it went right through. I have a scar here from when I opened a 12-foot ladder, and that metal brace came down. This was late at night. It was like 2 a.m.
Tired.
And just pulled out and like a guillotine, and just and
You weren't happy with that.
no, and it was bleeding profusely, and all the other techies, the crew was looking at me, and there was just blood running down my face. But you need to get a butterfly, or stitches or something. And so I just took a piece of duct tape and just placed it on there and just stuck it on it. So, but I still have a little bit of scar.
I've used wood glue plenty of times.
Yeah.
That works good.
Yeah.
Don't recommend it.
Yeah. No.
I asked that because John Berthel? He's an actor. He played Punisher. He has a podcast called Real Ones, and he's an actor, but he had one of his friends / I could say a coworker, where the guy's a stunt guy, and he told on the podcast everything about like what it takes to like become a stunt guy, how hard it is to get it, the stuff that they would do. They would basically break and enter just to get up there to be like, hey, here's my resume and whatnot. But he talks about like once he's actually was a stunt guy, they talk about how cheap Hollywood could be at times, where for like safety should be like the number one thing, but obviously you pay everyone by the hour as they're there. And there was supposed to be a fall scene later on that night, and they ended up having a bunch of like the safety guys go home instead of staying there, and the guy fell. They sent a lot of the safety guys home, like, we don't need you, this is wasting money, this is on a budget, need to go. Right. I wish I could remember his name. Well, the fall went wrong. I guess he bounced off the pad, and then it turned into more. And so that's kind of why I ask about like the safety, how often you would see people possibly get hurt.
Yeah.
I'd like to say not often.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough not to be more injured than I was. Arc welding in the rain and being 30 feet up, standing on 1x3s, building stuff. But you hear of really tragic elements, but overall, I don't think it's that bad. I think there's, you hear about, the fishermen of the Bering Sea, that being really, the most dangerous job, things like that. I don't think it's that bad. I just think, a lot of accidents happen when you're tired, and there's a lot of late shoots, but in my case, I haven't experienced too much tragedy.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Just ladders trying to.
Chop off my nose. Yeah.
I could assume that hurts. I know I've been punched in the face more times than the average human being, and nothing's more infuriating than getting punched in the nose, let alone a ladder.
Yeah, I think it was just more upset that it happened than feeling any pain, so.
Right. So from everything you've done till today, where you are building a castle for the homeless, how about did that even become a thought?
Yeah, interesting. I've always wanted to live very simply. And, I'd read this book, The Good Life, by Scott Nearing and his wife, Helen Nearing. So they lived in a house that was constructed of rebar and concrete on the inside, and then stone facade. So much more much more of a quick build than what I'm doing. And I was reading it, and they're talking about living off the land and being a lot more frugal.
You hear about NFL players that suddenly have that snap of a finger where they do that often because they hear horror stories of being in the NFL, getting out of the NFL, and then losing all their money and not
Yeah.
living that simple life.
I see. Yeah, and getting a sense of, yeah, I think being closer to nature also is really rewarding.
Yeah.
So, but I thought using a facade stone rather than a full width of stone would be cheating. Using concrete and rebar and stuff like that. So I decided just to build it solid, right? And it's not really a castle because I have a friend who is just 8 miles from here, and really just like 2 miles as the crow flies. It's literally building a castle. Has already built most of it, 80 feet, structure. So mine is just a very large stone house, And I designed it when I was younger, so my eyes were bigger than my stomach, so to speak, and then now I realize 20 years later that it's taking me a lot longer to finish than I had.
So that's how long you've been working on it?
Yeah, about 20 years. Yeah. So I'm almost done though. A couple more years.
Yeah.
And then I want to. It's much too big for me. So that's why I built this place.
Right.
And I'll live here and be kind of the caretaker to that place, and then use it to help feed the poor by having donors to other organizations be able to stay here for free. So if they donate to an organization, to a cause, then they get to stay here, and then that cause will be based upon really helping feed the poor, which
Right.
is I really want to do something good.
It's a sense
Like
of
that.
service.
Yeah.
And I covered that a lot in some previous podcasts, how really quickly just say it to you, how the education system teaches you need to be able to go to college, get a good job, buy a house, make babies, pay taxes, the traditional government way of wanting you to go about things, but never teaches you about serving the community, how serving the community really actually brings joy to one's life more than making money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that as I've gotten older, realized that in your memories, it's not really the things that you bought that kind of trigger these memories. It's more the time that you spend with other people. Right. So it's your time that you spent camping. It wasn't just the fact that you were camping. It was just the fact that the good time you had with those people. So the level, because I've always been very much alone being an artist. I often say it's like being a monk. You get up and you paint and have coffee and you paint, have coffee and you paint, have lunch and do the same thing over day in and day out. But it's those times I've spent with other human beings that really are the things I remember. So as I've gotten older, I've realized that taking time for people, doing things with people, that's really what, in the end, it's all about. So, and what you can do to help other people while you're alive is really the purpose.
Right. Be able to help them. It brings you joy because you create those memories, and again, it's not really the object. It's not necessarily what you're doing, because we spend all this time alone. It's like, I brought it up, I think this is the third podcast I've said it on, but it's the name of a book. You guys, if you've been following, you know what it is, but they talk about how you have all these people in like townhouses, so many people are around you, and yet all these people just feel so alone and so anxious because they don't actually take time to talk to one another. They don't know their next door neighbors. They don't have that sense of community.
Right.
And
right. Yeah.
I think more people, throughout, you've been around longer than I have, but I think people fell very easy to the trap of technology. But I think today you have a bunch of people trying to step out of that and go back to being able to communicate with one another. Mm-hmm. It's like MySpace came out and that was all cool and dandy, and then Facebook came out and that was fun. Like, oh, we need to be friends on here, friends on that, but then they forgot how to do this, talk to one another.
Right.
And I think more people today are trying to not be brainwashed by technology. And I don't want to get this into a political stance, but I think more people are taking a step back and going back to trying to think for themselves and how to go back to doing this, which is a very enjoyable life. Because I mean, between social media and now AI coming out, I mean, things are moving faster than ever, and people don't want to lose something that is most precious in life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the social media and how I'd seen it affect students, where they're interacting through technology rather than interpersonally, having a birthday party. Oh, you having a birthday party? Yeah. We're all going to do it, but through Zoom. But you live a block from each other. Why don't you just have the party together? But that's not what they want. They want to, use technology to do it. And that seems scary to me.
That's
where you can't, if you can't interact with people face to face, and we all know that, when we say things online, it can be misconstrued, and sometimes you're going to be much less hesitant to say things when you're face to face to someone. You're going to be, the filter's a lot larger and thicker when you're actually face to face.
They're scared. The internet trolls.
That type of thing. Yeah. So and what's real? What's true? Who are you actually speaking to? So, like the Facebook pages, don't look like anything like the people that when you actually meet them in person, right?
Catfishing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's the loss of the interpersonal communication in person is something that I worry about with this next generation, where they spend way too much time just their whole lives is digital.
Yeah. One of the last guy I actually had on the podcast is a photographer, and we covered how this person's so beautiful and this and that, and just highlights. That's all it is. You see a highlight of a moment of a person doing a thing, and it's misleading for how perfect their life is, but it's also extremely misleading of how they could look too.
Right.
He told me he can't tell me how many times people have complimented this person's so beautiful and this and that, and meanwhile he's there in the dressing room seeing the real deal, and he's like, right. You don't know what they really look like.
That's right. Yeah. And wonders of Photoshop.
Yeah, and filters are Photoshop, but then filters, I don't think I really covered this as much on here, so I'll go a little deeper into this. But depression really came not just off of being able to see one's face on Instagram and all that too, but the moment that Snapchat, you know what Snapchat is?
I've heard of it.
I take a photo of yourself and I send it to you, and you see it for 10 seconds, and then you take a photo and you send it back to me, and that's a way of communicating. But Snapchat has really came out with the first way of putting filters, changing one's face. And it has massively in the psychology world caused acts of depression, because it caused people to no longer like what they actually look like.
Yeah.
It's
sad.
It's very sad. It's very sad because many things. One, these companies make major profit off it, have all these ads and whatnot put on it for people to buy stuff, let alone the first thing that came into my head is the drug trafficking that comes from them kind of apps, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. But it really, the fact that people no longer actually like the way they look, all because how the hundreds of times that they edited their own photo, is something that I think really needs to be brought to court, honestly. I think it should be brought to law. Like, how many, you have more teenager girls today killing themselves all off of depression because they have this comparison of all these beautiful, gorgeous models that supposedly this is the one and only way, the way you're supposed to look, and if you don't look that way, then you're never going to find the love of your life because they're always going to be looking for the better looking person. And yeah, like I said, the amount of suicide rates for teenagers who are still cognitively developing is absurd. It should not be a thing. I don't think you should have any kind of social media until you're 18 years old. That's just my personal thought. But their way of going about it is we have like Instagram for teenagers and whatnot, like trying to find a way to go around it. But the problem is, throughout my parenthood, because they have YouTube and then they have YouTube for kids, you have all these people. I can't tell you how many times I've seen on YouTube where I'll walk in and they're like, not even talking about the addiction of YouTube, but I talk about like, put it there at exactly 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 24 seconds, something else comes on. And I've heard my kids say these outrageous things that they learn from it. So it's very obvious that these major tech companies still don't have it under control. And if it can't be under control, there needs to be a law put in place. I know I'd really just like stirred this down a different conversation, but it's something I feel a lot of passion in, that people really, again, stop living so simple of, oh, I love Facebook, I love Instagram, I love YouTube, so because I love it, I'm not going to make it a priority or look at it as a problem, when these are known facts that are occurring, and yet so many people are not willing to stand up and say something about it.
I think the other, the problem with freedom of speech and freedom, I think the first step, not to be kind of antithetical to your point, but I think more responsibility on the parents has to be made too, right?
I agree.
So parents need to monitor the content that their children are being seen, and seeing, and how much time and all that type of stuff. So that's I think the first step. I do think that like you said, don't have a child be exposed to anything until they're 18. It's gonna be,
that's hard. I know.
It's still stunting for them in their minds about, because their friends will mention and talk about things that they'll have no idea what's going on. But the fallout is, the outcome of being so mediated, right? So you're just so, you see 10,000 images, in a day.
Yeah.
And how's that affecting your brain? How's that affecting, so in my mind, I think the pushback you'll get from your kids for not having that technology, I think is still better than, the repercussions of the whole generation that can't communicate or can't, there's a book out called The Anxious Generation.
The Anxious Generation, yeah.
So
I've read that.
You have to weigh, that level of being maybe an outcast as a child, not being exposed to that versus the problems with being so mediated, But the freedom thing, that's as I'm much more of a libertarian in my thoughts. I don't necessarily want the government to be the one who's the parent either.
No, I don't want the. So I'll go a little deeper into it. So obviously I 100% agree, the parents should have control in their kids, but that kind of also goes down a rabbit hole of what about the kids that have the trashy parents that just don't give a crap?
Mm-hmm.
The kids have to suffer for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason why I put it upon that point. I'm not saying, I mean, personally, I take full responsibility in teachings of my own children. The car that I told you about that just got wrecked, I was there yesterday, and I brought my kids with me. Might be a little extreme, people might not like that I did this, but I brought them with me. I showed them the car. They're like, and they've ridden in that car plenty of times. And I was like, this is what happens when you don't pay attention. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when you don't follow the rules. And this is what happens when you do the wrong thing when no one's looking.
Right.
Like, it might be a very extreme thing, but I took it upon myself as this is an opportunity to show my kids what could happen if you continue down the path of doing things behind people's backs when you know it's wrong. Mm-hmm. So personally, in my sense, I may be a little more extreme. My mother tells me all the time that I'm extreme with raising my kids at times. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole different conversation. But I think for the kids who don't have that kind of a parent, those are kind of the kids I'm thinking of. Mm-hmm. It's on the lines of, I can't tell you how many times I've thought of doing adoption. If I get to a point in my life where I could adopt, I want to adopt because that would be one less kid that could grow up in a bad household. Mm-hmm. Give one more kid an opportunity to try to go in a good direction. Mm-hmm. But obviously I can't take in every single kid that have bad parents. Right. That's the only reason why I put any kind of responsibilities in the big tech companies to consider those factors and not just look at the dollar signs. Right. I guess that goes back to the whole sense of don't worry about the income, serve the community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, these big tech companies, they serve in a sense of providing jobs for people. I get that. I 100% get that. I'm not about taking jobs away. I think there needs to be more opportunity for more jobs, especially within the United States. And again, I'm really not trying to go down a political path, but we need to be able to focus heavily on opportunity and growth for those within our country, but also the ethical part of the actions that are made, the repercussions that come about it. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why I say all that. Mm-hmm. Like I'm doing, this is the entire reason I'm doing this, because I want to be able to, it's called Henry's Every Angle podcast. I wanted every angle, but too many people beat me. Mm-hmm. Right. So I put my last name in it, and this is just one way of me trying to serve the community, to show people a different angle of life, show people like you. Again, I consider you an outcast. You don't follow the social norms of life, and you think for yourself. And I really want people to start thinking for themselves, but see what kind of a footprint I could make to try to make the world a better place. If I can't physically do it anymore because of the problems I have, I could use my voice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I know that was a huge rabbit hole, and I don't even know how we came about that rabbit hole, but the whole media. That's how we got about it.
Yeah, mediated culture. Yeah. I know. I don't know. I have no solution. I just. I know that just putting warning labels or warning. Every time you log into Facebook or any social media, warning, this can be addictive.
Yeah.
But it's just like the war on drugs, or the even cigarette smoking.
It's like good luck.
Yeah. I think the culture has to change, ultimately.
Yeah.
When it's no longer cool to spend 12 hours of your day scrolling your phone down your phone,
Oh, yeah.
right? Something's going to have to replace it, or So I mean, I think cultural change is really the solution, but how to do that is just really, it's so seems like culture, it does march, but I think it's a bunch of sheep, and sometimes the sheep want to go this way, and sometimes the sheep want to go that way. And you can try to be the shepherd, but sometimes the sheep don't want to go that direction, so they don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, definitely along the lines of think for yourself. What are your thoughts on this, especially coming from the education side? Do you think this is something that could possibly be brought into like the public school system, like teaching, hey, this is the actual repercussion of this much media exposure, the addiction that comes behind it?
Right. So, this is where the government would need to get involved, because I think if or it'd have to be private, because if a lot of students now are being subsidized, they have to get the student loan program to even afford to go to school. So, in upper education, it would have to be somewhat sanctioned by the government, because so much of that money comes from them. So
I've spoken publicly quite a few times, not on what the public school system's doing bad, because again, I'm not trying to make this political, but putting my 2 cents into what the public school system should do for bettering humanity.
Right. Well, I think knowledge is always a part of the solution, right? So when you're actually knowing the facts and knowing the effects of human behavior, and that being repeated, just like the whole recycling program that started, really, I remember it being predominantly introduced in 1976, something like that, 6th grade, 7th grade, really started the whole idea of recycle. The term recycle came about, and so there was a whole cultural shift to accept it. So it is possible. I definitely think it's possible to use that knowledge and to repeat it, and to make it something that is acceptable for people. And once people have a beliefs in like smoking as well as another example, where if you don't smoke, that's seen as a character strength, whereas smoking is seen as a detriment. So that's a cultural, kind of. Whereas if you look at 1950s television, where even doctors, what type of cigarettes do you smoke, doctor? Oh, Camel cigarettes are the ones I smoke. They had a whole bunch of, so it was socially and culturally acceptable to smoke. You're expected to smoke. It relaxes you after a long day. So the culture can be, changed by, by stating the facts. So I do think that education, and starting young obviously, and presenting that, the actual facts about the repercussions of spending so much time on media platforms, and then over years getting that kind of cultural shift to seeing it as a taboo or something negative. But it's I see it being as a really kind of a long-term solution.
I don't disagree.
There's no quick pill for it, I don't think.
No, nothing's fixed overnight.
Yeah.
Nothing at all whatsoever. It's a matter of like balance. You need to go away from the extremes, in need of, like, what's the actual problem here? What can we do to work on the actual problem?
Right.
And
Yeah.
like you said, things don't happen overnight.
Right.
But putting it off is not a solution either.
Mm-mm.
Actually sitting down and talking about it, trying to come up with like some kind of plan, like again, like maybe introduce it into the public school system
Mm-hmm.
of what happens when you spend too much time on media. It's like they say that men today have seen more naked women on the internet within seconds over the Prince of Egypt
Wow.
has in their entire lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, big repercussion in a sense of it takes away effort. So like you're not trying to go out and mate as a man, you're going the easy route. You getting into the neurological system, dopamine crash, serotonin crash. Media goes the exact same way as pornography, as a quick fix or relief. Memes. I laughed at this meme. You always hear people sending memes to one another, and it's less time doing this, less time talking. This is my favorite part about doing this. It's not the editing, it's not the calling, it's not the setup, it's not putting it out there, it's not how many views I got. My favorite thing about this is it's a time completely technology free. No phone calls, no text messages, just interacting with people one-on-one or one-on-two, whichever. And I've even recognized, because I grew up in that's my generation where I was in high school, and then suddenly social media really became a thing. So that's my generation I can speak upon. And just doing a little bit of podcasting, I'm not even on my 10th episode yet. I've personally recognized a switch within my head, how I've been able to talk to people even better. And I thought I was always good at talking to people one-on-one, but just practicing this, because this is a practice, and being able to do this for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I recognized my ability to communicate with others and to talk to one another. And it's all because it's within a controlled environment, just dedicated to do this. And I think a lot of people, I could believe that people go probably at months at times without talking to someone face to face.
Yeah, I know. I've spent many hours in front of my easel, not interacting.
Not interacting, but you're also you're taking in serotonin and dopamine in organic manners. And I think we need a lot more of them organic opportunities, I guess is what I'm going about. Yep. But
No,
yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Well, anything you want to say, or anything you want to ask me, or anything like that?
Let me see. So where are you going to be living?
Where am I going to be living?
Yeah.
West Virginia.
Uh-huh.
If this were to create an income by the time I'm done college, I'm really thinking of homeschooling my kids. So I have the ability to teach my kids things that are valuable to me, obviously, but what could also enhance their lives. But that would also give me the opportunity to do more traveling. And when I say traveling, I mean be able to do more of this. Continue to try to talk to people, get a hold of people, bring them with me. And because I'm going to run out of people within one spot.
Right.
No matter how much I try.
It's like you like travel around not only the States but maybe the world.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'd like that,
That'd
but
be
that
cool.
would be really far down the lines.
Yeah.
I'm not open to being. I'm not against being in own. I'm not against having multiple locations I could stay at and be in. It's part of the reason I keep my property up here in New Hampshire, because at some point I will break ground, I will build, and then I could, if I wanted to, and I continue to do this, then while my kids are in public school, maybe during the summer, instead of being down there, I could be up here,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to be here in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And live a, I know that it's very controversial, but live a minimalist lifestyle,
Yeah.
which I think that's very important. I don't want to be attached to things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I need to get rid of stuff. I have so much stuff. Yeah. Yeah. When my parents died, then I inherited all their stuff. So.
Yeah, and you probably have emotional attachment to.
No.
No, I don't give a
Some
fuck.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. No, not really. Not really.
Just keep stuff that you could use. And
Yeah. 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 But it's tough to it's tough to throw some of their hobbies away, because my dad liked to build these boats, from they'd be these wooden boats that were remote controlled, and he loved sailing one of his boats and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, I don't really need this, but I couldn't, just throw it away or, give it away necessarily. So
Well, maybe if you were to give it away, just like
to someone who would,
Yeah,
really
really.
appreciate it, then I could do it. But
more than you do.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, just stuff. I think there was a saying I heard years and years ago that you don't own stuff, they own you.
Yeah.
Stuff owns you. So that's what I'm trying to liberate a little bit, to live as itemless as possible.
Yeah.
Just the essentials. If it's not beautiful or practical, then it's got to go.
Yeah. I'm very much that way. It's like one of my favorite hobbies is when I throw shit away.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Finally!
Yeah, I had a professor who early in his marriage, and they went through this stage where they decided just to throw away everything. Just everything. Got rid of everything. And so you look in the cupboard, there's no dishes, there's no plates, there's nothing like that. So it was very freeing, I think, for the first 2 hours, and then you realize
I have no plate.
I have no plate. So now what do I do? Right, so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it definitely.
Moderation.
Moderation
I'm
is a
all for-
huge
Yeah,
thing.
moderation. But yeah, just a lot of stuff we hold on to that just gets in a box and then just disappears in an attic or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm the kind of person, like, every single wall in here, I would probably not have anything on it.
Uh-huh.
I like openness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I really like the shakers. If you ever done any traveling, go down to the Shaker Village in southern New Hampshire. It's
Yeah.
one of maybe 3 still. Right now they're museums. I don't think there are any Shakers left, but they were really practical about everything. I like their philosophy, and a lot of my thinking, I always harken back to them. So they would take in orphans. That's how they grew. They did not believe in marriage. They believed in marriage, but they didn't partake in it. And so, and it was very egalitarian society. So you changed positions, jobs every 3 months. So. And the men would work in the kitchen, the women would work in the barn. I mean, it would just rotate. So if you didn't like a job, it didn't matter, because
You weren't
you weren't there for more than 3 months in that position. And it was actually a woman who invented the circular saw blade. So it was very egalitarian, but they were very practical, and they're known for their furniture, like the shaker boxes and the shaker furniture, and their designs are just beautiful, but very minimal. If it wasn't essential, if it wasn't necessary or practical or beautiful, then they wouldn't, hold on to it. I like their philosophy. I like the way that they, saw beauty on earth, tried to make their life. So they made all their clothing, they made everything that they needed. They were the first ones in the community to have electricity because that was time saving. So it's not against technology, but it had to be practical, had to be something that
Of use.
And to make their lives more enjoyable on earth. So I was always really inspired by them and their way of life. There was maybe 2 or 3 of the original generation of Shakers, I think in the 90s, maybe 2000, and then I think they all passed away, but they didn't procreate. So they would take in orphans, and then at age 18 they could sign the book, become Shakers, or they could leave and go into the outside world, so to speak. So, but the egalitarianism, the benefits, they're the ones that took the round broom and made it a flat broom. A lot of historical elements they were anti-war. There was a lot that I respected of them. It's too bad they didn't continue, because I think a lot of people would enjoy being part of a community where they did work, and they worked in nature, and they were part of the land, part of the soil. They grew all their own food, they made all their own clothes. Anything that they needed, they would just build themselves, and they were just masters at carpentry and invention. And they designed barns that were round, so that instead of going and delivering hay along a straight line of stalls, they would just there's a ramp that led to the center, and they just drop the hay down into the center, and the cows were in a circle, so they could reach, all of them could reach there. So just time saving, work saving. So I don't know how I got onto this topic other than this type of getting back to nature and feeling that you're part of the landscape and keeping the objects to a minimum. You know? So if it's practical or beautiful, because I think beauty is important too. But we have a lot of stuff, and I think if we can spend more time with people and less with acquiring the stuff, then I think this world would be better. Much better. So.
Oh, for sure. One of the things I like about what you just said was the whole rotating thing. They, from what it sounds like, they relied on one another. So it's a sense of serving. It's, well, this person wouldn't be able to get this if I don't do this.
Right.
And serving, the purpose of serving is, I think, something that is extremely important, and that's what it really sounded like by rotating around.
Mm-hmm.
Also keep it fresh, keep it new.
Right. Yeah.
Not doing the same thing.
And then you're so well rounded. The women in the shaker could, cut a piece of wood or split wood as well as the men, and the men could cook as well. Maybe not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. That everyone had the skill set.
Not just
to
PB
survive,
and
not
J's.
just not being so focused in doing one task, but being really well rounded in everything. And so you're growing, you're learning new tasks and new ways of doing things, and finding better ways of doing things, easier ways of doing things. So it benefits everyone.
No, I like that a lot. Oh, cool. Thank you, Ozzy.
Oh, you're welcome.
I gotta go to the bathroom, so
Okay.
I'll cut it off here. Thank you, guys. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, share, comment below. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you did like. Tell me what you want to hear more of. Thank you.